My guest today is Philip Blazdell. Philip is the CEO at Fedrok AG, a proof of green blockchain focused on transparency and trust in the carbon credit market. Welcome to the show, Philip.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
It is a pleasure, Philip, and a good morning to you. Hey, look, let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. It would be super cool if you could introduce yourself. I would love to hear just a little bit of your personal and professional backstory. Yeah, what have you been doing in the lead up to joining the team at Fedrok AG?
Excellent. My story is kind of different to maybe most people you talk to. Is I don't come from the industry. I'm not your traditional blockchain or cryptocurrency guy. I actually trained as an engineer. I spent a period working in academia, and I got into crypto and blockchain about 2011 when I was building the first ASICs mining devices as an engineer. And my interest kind of grew from that to the point where Fedrok was born. So, I think my approach is very different to most people. Is I approach it as an engineering company, as how to build trusts. So, it's for me, I'm very much a novice in the industry. I'm very much learning, and every day is school day for me.
Well, I think, most people in blockchain would describe themselves in a similar way, Philip. But, if you're an engineer building ASICs, back in the day, I think you're underselling yourself slightly. But funnily enough, in our correspondence prior to a recording today, Philip, you did mention that one of your interests or fascinations, I think, is you talked about building companies in places like Switzerland where you have a huge amount of process and compliance. And I guess, my kind of perception of Switzerland is, Rolex watches. So that's kind of, I don't know if that makes sense from a process and compliance point of view, but I know that Fedrok AG is indeed based in Switzerland. So maybe just from that perspective, as a way of introduction, you talked about building companies in Switzerland. That's what you're doing at the moment. Why is that a fascination for you? And what are the pros and cons, I guess, of being based out of Switzerland?
That's a great question. I like that a lot. I think the thing about Switzerland is you're right. People think about chocolates and Rolex watches, and it has a good brand. It is also incredibly hot on compliance. And originally, when the co-founder approached me about this project, my response was, I don't really want to get involved with blockchain companies because there's no degree of trust and no degree of integrity in a fair amount of the companies that I've come across. So the reason to build it in Switzerland wasn't really to make my life incredibly difficult, but that's how it turned out. It was to build something that was underpinned by trust. And throughout the project, the question we ask ourselves is how do we build trust? We want to change the world. We want to do amazing things, but everybody says that. Everybody has the next big revolutionary product. So the idea we always wanted to be was have a product or a company that I could sell to my 80-year-old mother. Yeah. If she was comfortable with it, then we'd done our success. And Switzerland is just the best place for us to do this because everything has to be done through compliance. They have a very, very strict regulatory structure. And we work very closely with FINMA, the regulators. And I have a love-hate relationship with FINMA. FINMA are exceptionally detail-driven. They're very much like me. They're very anal and numbers-driven, but they make you go through the right steps. So the reason for building in Switzerland and the fascination is you have to do things right. You cannot cut corners. And in the long term, it's going to build a lot of trust. One of the other things that we've done in Switzerland is we've joined voluntarily a regulatory body, a VQF, which is it's kind of like a body that oversees financial transactions. And they have made our policies and procedures incredibly robust. And when I'm off traveling around the world, promoting Fedrok, I find that people are largely fascinated by this. And it's opened a lot of doors because, okay, you're a company that's has all the management certificates, ISO 9001, 14001, and you're a member of VQF. You guys are transparent. And I think that is the absolute fascination with Switzerland for us.
Yeah, got it. Thank you, Philip. Very, very well articulated. All right. Well, look, let's talk a bit more about Fedrok itself in terms of, yeah, what is the, I guess, the purpose, the mission, if you like. Yeah, just explain, yeah, in a kind of top level way, I guess. What are you guys doing at Fedrok? What's the problem? What's the mission? What's the solution?
Excellent. Yeah. We we wanted, like everybody else, to change the world. And our mission really wasn't to make ourselves and our shareholders financially successful. But if that happens, that's great. Our mission was to impact billions of people. And we saw blockchain as a really liberating technology. And in a sense, we're, I was going to say yogurt weavers, but we're very kind of compassionate people, and we believe that we've been lucky in our own careers to have good education, good access to facilities, and we want to try and bring that to other people. So when we sat down over one or two beers, let me say, in with our tech team, we decided that the thing that we cared about most passionately was the environment. You know, we're family orientated company. Most of us have young kids, and we felt that climate change and greenwashing were really interesting and challenging problems. So we decided to pose a hypothetical question: how could we address that with blockchain? And how could we essentially tokenize carbon credits in a way that not only allows the average consumer, going back to my 80-year-old mother, to access these kind of tokens, but to allow a more transparent and equitable distribution of carbon technology. So that was very much the top level plan of Fedrok.
Yeah, makes sense. And of course, you talk about, yeah, I mean, it's proof of green, the proof of green consensus mechanism. So maybe that's a nice way of kind of summarizing it. That's a catchy title for a blockchain consensus mechanism, proof of green. So yeah, tell us how the proof of green consensus mechanism works. What's different from other chains?
Yeah, and this is the part where I have to be honest and put my hand on my heart and say I'm not the architect for this, and it's extremely complex. So I explain it in very simple terms.
Please.
I encourage people, if they want to know more, reach out to us, and we'll happily put you in touch with our tech team. Essentially, it's a mechanism that says to use our chain and to be able to mine on it, you must be doing green credentials. So as we start as a company, maybe you've made the commitment to transition to clean energy. Maybe you've made the commitment to move your mining into areas with less environmental impact. And also you've made a commitment to have strong and robust ESG policy, environmental social governance policies. So the idea is, if you want to participate in our blockchain, if you want to be mine, you want to be a validator, we're going to come and check that you're doing green things. And we understand that it's not going to happen. The transition to clean energy isn't going to happen overnight, but we're asking for a commitment to be on the journey with us.
Yeah, makes a very good sense. All right, so there's kind of like a couple of big use cases that you talk about from the perspective of Fedrok. You know, you talk about like the carbon credit market. You talk about making Bitcoin mining slightly more greener. So I guess those are kind of the two big ones. So let's start with the carbon credit market. How does Fedrok help increase, I guess, like the transparency across that market?
Yeah, and if I can, Andy, I'm going to reference one of the projects that we're very proud of that's going on in Papua New Guinea at the
Please.
moment. And this is I'm busting with pride because the team's done an amazing job with this project. The interesting thing about PNG is 97% of the land is owned by people.
Yeah.
So, and that equates to about 300 million tons of carbon credits. And the issue in Papua New Guinea is the land is maintained by people. It's actually acting as one of the world's carbon sinks, but nobody's getting incentivized for this. So the project we're undertaking with our partners there is to tokenize the whole of the 300 million tons. So we will map out the rainforest. Many of it is like virgin rainforest, never been touched. We will tokenize that, and that will be put onto the Fedrok platform for companies to purchase this to offset their carbon credits. So for me, the impact of this project is phenomenal, because we can see the impact to the whole of the infrastructure in Papua New Guinea. So people will be incentivized to look after their forests. They're not going to be, let people come in and log. Or the horror story I heard last week was somebody came in and acquired a whole bunch of virgin rainforest for some tin sheet. These things will just stop. It will develop a better understanding of the land use, and it's going to give people a lot more kind of, in a sense, pride of their community, because they're going to say, okay, look, this land is incredibly valuable. And where the blockchain comes in is there's no greenwashing here. There's no double accounting. And when we looked at the carbon credits market, it was very, very opaque. There was nothing. I'm an engineer. I like things in boxes. I like tick boxes and stuff. When we looked at the carbon credits market, it was like the wild, wild west. So with this use case, we're going to be, tokenizing the 300 million carbon credits and then making those available for people. And as a company, our philosophy is, you know what, we don't need to make money on this. We will invest the profits back. So, we can see a huge uptick in the communities there. People are going to be able to have a little bit more cash. They're going to be able to maybe buy better fertilizers for the land. So it's going to have a knock-on effect. So I think that's the really, really exciting case. The government in Papua New Guinea are following this very, very closely. They have their 50th anniversary of the foundation, or the founding of PNG in September. We hope to hand the MVP over to them then.
And I see, Philip, it's not just Papua New Guinea, but I think you guys are working with, I guess that they must be similar projects in Chad and Niger as well.
Yeah. This is really, really interesting. And again, it comes out of our desire to leave an impact on the world. Yeah. And we're working with a NGO in Chad that is loosely affiliated to MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières. And one of the issues they're having, like many NGOs, is fundraising. And in a country as poor as Chad or Niger, a lot of people are unbanked. And not only getting funds from the NGO to the people who actually need this, but allowing people to participate in financial transactions or cross-border transactions is lacking. So one of the things we're building is that MVP at the moment. And I had a very shrewd lesson taught to me in Rwanda recently, where the one of the big movers and shakers in the African blockchain society in Africa said, listen, we don't want Fedrok coming here building things for us. We want to build it ourselves. So we're actually running a competition at the moment to any blockchain developer, Web3 developer in Africa. And we're going to fund them to develop the MVP and then hopefully roll that out in Chad with the NGO. The reason I'm just super fascinated with this project because it ticks all of the boxes. We're going to bring a lot of African talent to develop the product, which I think gives it a unique insight. It's an opportunity on the blockchain that will have massive impact. And at the end of the day, if things go well, this is going to allow the NGO to really improve their maternity care in the region. And when it comes to these kind of projects, anything that involves, children is something we're passionate about.
And so it's similar, Philip, in the case of Bitcoin mining. I can see that essentially what you guys do is if Bitcoin miners can prove that they're using renewable energy for their mining source, and they do that by getting you guys to essentially audit them, then they just continue mining Bitcoin in the normal way using the Bitcoin proof of work consensus. But since they're verified and audited by you guys, they can also earn additional rewards from the Fedrok system, right?
Yes, that's correct. And eventually, as in the next 6 months, we will be handing the audits over to outside external agencies because we don't want to be seen as marking our own homework. For two reasons. One, I don't think it's particularly ethical. And also, as a trained auditor, if I do it, it's going to be so rigorous, it's going to be quite antagonistic to people. So we will do, for example, we're doing an audit in Oman, in the Middle East in a couple of weeks' time. Once that's done and we've approved the framework, that will be handed over to a third party.
And in terms of when I say people, those Bitcoin miners get rewarded by Fedrok, of course, that means they get rewarded by, the native token for Fedrok, which is FDK coin. And that's quite interesting as well because it's uniquely built to support carbon reduction and verified carbon credits as well. So maybe just anything that's relevant in terms of the FTK coin tokenomics, how that all works, Philip, please.
Yeah, this is really interesting question, Andy. And I had a full head of hair before we got into this one. And we are very close to listing on an exchange. However, because of our masters in FINMA, this has had to go through a number of stages of compliance. And the tokenomics is relatively simple. We will mint a number of coins, which we will be funding. And then as we onboard people, they can mint coins. But before we can actually launch on the exchange, which is pretty imminent, every stage of this has to be signed off by FINMA. And the really interesting part of this for me is the KYC and the AML. And we've had some very interesting conversations with FINMA about how do we do KYC and AML for people who want to purchase. And again, not coming from the industry, I've found this quite interesting because on one side there's the blockchain community who want anonymity, and on the other side there's Fedrok that want to make sure everything's done right. So the tokenomics and how the coins are going to be deployed is I was going to say a mishmash, but it's a hybrid between the wants of people of anonymity plus the compliance in Switzerland. However, I think, again, this is something that I see as a strength of the company. That, it's not possible to do anything nefarious once we launch. There's no possibility to do rug pulls. All of the ownership, the vesting of the tokens for our owner or for the team is all documented. It has to be everything in black and white and will be on our website.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting, Philip, I'm sure it won't have escaped your notice, is the kind of, with the likes of America leaning right at their last election and the incoming Trump administration, there's kind of been I don't know if you'd call it a pushback, but kind of a pushback against the perceived ESG movement or even environmentalism, I don't know, wokeism, identity politics, all that stuff as well, of course. But Do you sense that at all? Does that make it harder for what you guys are doing, and for people that are trying to do the right thing in terms of climate change? Is that, or is that just like a short term political momentum shift that will, correct itself again?
It's really, really interesting, and I don't think there's a definitive answer for this. One of the things that upset me quite a lot was our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, last week, saying that, in terms of national security, we have to throw net zero out the window. And I understand his point of view. I respect the way he articulated it, but I find it disappointing. However, when I look at certain industries now and I see the competitiveness and the difficulty of trade is increasing. So in terms of ESG, I'm such a passionate believer in ESG. And I think for myself as a consumer, if a company has strong ESG credentials, it's going to be more interesting to me. It's really interesting as well. I noticed British Airways is now offering you the ability to buy carbon credits, and that will contribute to your frequent flyer status. So, yeah, the world's a crazy place at the moment. What's happening in the US and in the UK isn't making things easier, but I think it's driving people at a grassroots level to be more passionate about these things. In a sense, it feels like this is a way that people can rebel in a very simple way.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Well, how do you go about then, I suppose, raising awareness of Fedrok, getting people to align with your cause, use the blockchain? It's a challenging mission, I'm sure, in a crowded space.
It is, and this has been our challenge from day one. And my approach as CEO hasn't been, I was going to say, intuitive to some of the engineering team, because I take a pragmatic, number driven approach. So, all the time we're talking about data and, how we measure things. I think the way we're having success with Fedrok is the fact that we're a Swiss company. A lot of people like that, and whether this is right or wrong, they perceive that as being a major benefit for us and a trust. We're also focusing in our early stages on projects that are impactful. So, I'm super passionate about the project in Chad, because if we're 80% successful, this is going to improve the lives of, millions of people in a measurable way. So, we're trying to be leaders, not followers in the field. And we're trying to, my personal mission is to touch 1 billion people this year. If I can improve their life by 0.1%, then I'll be super happy. And when we look at our competitors or other people in the space, we admire many, many people's work. There's some really good projects out there, and there's a lot of people like us that want to change the world. So it's just a question of getting out there, meeting guys like yourself, putting our name out there, and trying to prove that we're honest and trustworthy and the good guys in the industry.
Absolutely. Well, look, as we finish up this part of the podcast, then, Philip, for people that, do want to look more at what you guys are building and see if there is a way that they can take part, what is the best way for people to learn more about Fedrok? What should they do? Where should they go?
Yep. The first place is to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. We are continuously updating the website, so there's always new information on the website. And we have a mailing list where you can subscribe for press releases or content. Or I'm sure people can reach out to you and you can connect people directly to me. My email address is always open, and one of the most fun parts of my job is getting emails from people who've seen these kind of podcasts and wanted to follow up with questions. So completely open to that, Andy.
Awesome. Well, listeners, the website, of course, is in the show notes, but yeah, fedrok.com. And of course, yeah, that's spelled Fedrok. Yeah, well, Philip, it's time to start to finish up the show. And we do that, of course, by running you through a segment we call the Crypto Conversation Hot Take Round. Are you up for it?
Yes, sir. Fire away.
All right, I'm just going to fire some questions at you, Philip. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Just want you to give me your honest answers, hot take style, if you like. Question 1 for you. What would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
I think my firmest conviction is this is here to stay and it will change the world.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Look, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So look, 10 years is a long time. Anything you like here. But yeah, Fedrok, I suppose. What does it all look like in 10 years' time?
In 10 years' time, it looks like it's ubiquitous and it's everywhere and nowhere, and it becomes part of everybody's life.
Yeah. Simple as that. I like it. I see in your bio notes, Philip, you're described as a former visiting professor at UFC in Brazil and a certified Six Sigma black belt. Yeah, what does this all mean?
It means I'm a nerd. It means I love numbers, and I teach process engineering. I taught process engineering, so I get into the details about how things operate, and I get really excited about statistics.
Yep, and a mind for numbers.
Yeah.
All right, and it brings us nicely, really, to the final question, Philip, which is: what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Oh man, I'm a huge reader. So that's a really tough one. I would probably have to go old school and
Yep,
say Arthur C. Clarke, Rendezvous with Rama. In
nice.
terms of movies, there's only one correct answer to that, and anybody who doesn't say 2001. Yeah.
Yes.
And in terms of TV, I really should say Doctor Who because I'm English.
Yes.
However, I've just 20 years late, I've just discovered Lost, and I'm absolutely gripped by that.
Wow. There were some fascinating answers there. I love the Doctor Who, Arthur C. Clarke. Yeah, some classics there. And Lost, man, I found Lost frustrating. I watched it live at the time and gave up halfway through. I shouldn't say that. I hope you're enjoying it. Yeah. Philip, thank you so much for coming on the show and spending some time with us today. This was a lot of fun. Just to close it out, again, look, please do tell people where they can go to keep up with all things Fedrok.
Yep. You can follow us through the website. You can sign up for our mailing list, and we will send you lots of exciting press releases and news. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow our social media channels, which are also listed on the website. And if you really want to talk to me, you can reach out to Andy, and he'll pass on my email address, and we can have a fun conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Philip. All the best, and bye for now.
Thank you, Andy. That's great. Thank you.